Welcome back. So we're going to continue our discussion on network strategy, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to assess the relative degree of power between firms. And of course, like so many things in academia, we need to have a matrix for it, and we're going to have a little bit of a 2x2 matrix. So on your y-axis, you have your balanced relationship. And then you'd have an unbalanced relationship. So on your y-axis here. And your x-axis, you have a loose relationship versus a tight-knit relationship. Okay? Just kind of draw these down here. All right, so let me draw a situation where you have a balanced relationship coupled with a loose relationship. So you would have firm A and firm B that are relatively equal, but maybe they don't work particularly closely together, but it would be, some sort of agreement between equals. Okay? We would call this mutual independence. So anytime a firm has some sort of an arm's length relationship with a partner firm, they conduct transactions, but they're not particularly close to each other, but at least they are trading with each other as equals, we will call this mutual independence. Okay? Now, the second one would be a tight relationship that is also balanced. And again, we've got firm A and B here. And we will call this mutual dependence. And so what you might be looking at here would be some sort of a network or an alliance or a partnership. These are two firms that are equal, but by working together, they can get more. Probably notice what I'm looking at is kind of this dichotomy between embedded and the discrete organization perspective. Now down here, you have an unbalanced relationship that's also a loose relationship. So here you would have firm A versus firm B. And we could call this unbalanced independence. Where one firm clearly is in a position of power over another, and they could dictate the terms of exchange. Again, you'd still find kind of arm's length relationships. It's just it's a matter of discrepancy of power. Do you remember in the five horses model we talked about things like the bargaining power of suppliers, or the relative power of competition? That's exactly what we're describing here, except we're looking at it versus at a network versus discrete organizations perspective. Okay. Now again, we've got unbalanced relationship here, but it's a tight relationship, and this is what we call unbalanced dependence. And again, what you've got is, yeah, they're probably in the same network. Maybe they work together, but clearly one firm has power over another. Maybe some examples. might help? Well, the easiest one is mutual independence. And anytime that there is a buyer and a seller among equals, this one's pretty straightforward. I'd say a lot of your transactions from a discrete organizational perspective would probably take place here. Now, if we want to start going to the network, or let's stick with the loose relationship. If we look at the loose relationship perspective, one of my favorite examples of this is Walmart and Vlasic. Okay? Vlasic agreed to supply Walmart with pickles. Walmart was such a more powerful actor than Vlasic was that they were able to dictate the price that Vlasic could charge to Walmart to distribute the pickles. And it wound up being that the cost of production wound up being greater than their profits from making the pickles, and it almost put Vlasic out of business. But they were not able to break their contract with Walmart because, again, Walmart had a tremendous more amount of power over Vlasic. Now, if we start coming into kind of these balanced relationships, guess I got a little excited before I got a few letters on this mutual dependence piece. Again, this would be any sort of collaboration between equals. Some that might come to mind might be McDonald's and Coca-Cola. I mean, they're both huge food giants, but they have a relationship where Coke is the drink that you find at all McDonald's. They both benefit from this arrangement, but again, it's a negotiation between equals. Or Starbucks and Pepsi, that's another one. Now, when you start getting into unbalanced dependence, you might have two firms, but one is clearly in a position of power. My understanding is that McDonald's, as a firm in power, has a single potato supplier for their French fries, and they dictate the terms of exchange to that potato supplier. But again, these two firms are relatively closely linked. Or think about, there is a firm called the Coca-Cola Bottling Company. Any idea what they do as an operation? Well, the Coca-Cola Bottling Company sells all their bottles directly to Coke. Yes, they are separate firms, but their networks are so tight that these differences almost don't matter. Okay? Or I talked about kairetsu arrangements previously, thinking about like Mitsubishi versus their spark plug manufacturer. Okay? Same thing with unbalanced dependence. But if you take away nothing else from this, what we're looking at on this side is the discrete organizational perspective, and this is more the embedded organizational perspective. So arm's length relationships here, just a matter of how do we describe the balance of power versus a network or an embedded organizational perspective, and how do we describe the balance of power between them. And again, I like this matrix. I think it's a nice supplement to a Porter 5 forces model if you want to decide whether to go with maybe competition or cooperation as you're entering a new industry. Well, great. What we're going to talk about in the next video are what we call relational arrangements, and we'll give you some more specific examples of how these work out in practice. It gets a little bit more detail, so I want to dedicate a whole video to it. I'm looking forward to seeing you then.